Hey, I'm Phil, and this is Phil with Facts. This is the show where I try to destigmatize all the myths and everything that surrounds the food, and try to give you guys confidence to try to make some of this stuff at home. We're going to do a lot of fun stuff on this channel, but for starters, I want to start with one of my favorite things to make, and that's mead. For those of you who don't know, mead is probably one of the oldest forms of alcohol, debatably, and it's essentially just honey wine. So with that said, let's get going. So today we're going to start with Midnight Mead. I'm completely making that name up. It's not a real thing. It's more or less just so that I have a name for the recipe card when I'm finally done and I think it's amazing and I want to brew big batches of it. Today we're going to make a very tiny batch, about 1 gallon. I want to just defunk a lot of the myths that surround brewing alcohol and making all that kind of fermented stuff. Some of the top questions people ask when it comes to brewing alcohol is, how hard is it? Do I need to buy a bunch of expensive equipment? How long does it take? How time consuming? How expensive? The answer is, it's not that expensive. It does not take a ton of equipment. Most of the stuff you can find in your own house. And I'm going to go over that stuff with you right now. This is a hydrometer. This is probably the most expensive piece of equipment I have bought to brew. Is it necessary? Is it essential? You can make stuff without it, but you're going to really regret it if anything goes wrong and you don't have one. This is a sanitation bucket. This is sanitizer. I'm using Star San. There are tons of different sanitizers out there. If there's one that you prefer or like better, go for that one. And then if you look in here, it has just all kinds of stuff. We're not even going to touch most of it today. A lot of it includes things like a funnel, turkey baster, measuring cups, spoons. Again, most of this stuff easy enough to get. Even the hydrometer, you can find it online. They run maybe 18 bucks. So there goes that. And then these, the cardboard. These are a fairly inexpensive glass vessel, commonly used to brew alcohol. I love to brew in these things. I highly recommend getting one. If you can't find one, or you find one that's made of plastic, or you have a bucket or something like that, as long as there's a sealable lid and a place for an air stop, go with that. And then water. Now that we've been over the equipment, I want to go over the ingredients that go inside a mead. A mead is essentially, as I said, honey wine, so you only really have 4 ingredients. It's going to be the honey, the water, the yeast, and then whatever flavoring you add to it, and that part's optional. Just the honey, water, and yeast will make a pretty good mead. We're just stepping it up to make it a little bit more complex, and to give you guys a little bit more confidence in what you're doing. When you only have a few ingredients in anything you cook, those ingredients are super important. They're vital. You want to use the best you can get, because anything that's really cheap or not good quality is going to affect the final product. With that said, I'm using a local honey, BZB's. It's a Staten Island company, and I'm warming it up right now. I'm not boiling it. Boiling it would be a whole different thing. I'm just trying to loosen it up so that when I try to get that honey into that carboy, I have a good time. It will not be a good time otherwise. And, yeah. We also need raisins, blueberries. This is the yeast I'm using. I just wanted to show you guys. Nottingham yeast. It's a standard yeast. You can get them pretty much anywhere. I have standard sugar. And what I'm going to do is cut up a few raisins. Now I want to also say that I'm using a darker colored mead today, so I'm using dark raisins. If I was using a lighter color, I would use golden raisins. The brand doesn't really matter. What you want to look out for is that if you go to a farmer's market and try to buy like better raisins or local raisins, they sometimes coat them in oil. That is not a good thing. You want no oil. You really want on the ingredients for it to just say raisins. And here, California seedless raisins. That's it. That's simple. I'm going to get this stuff cut up and I will be back. Okay, so in this pot I have 1 bag of frozen blueberries that I let defrost. I think it's kind of important to note that the packaging for this blueberries indicated that all that's in that package was blueberries. As I said, you don't really want to add anything extra. You don't want those preservatives. You don't want anything that's going to kind of change or has a tendency to spoil mead. You want to keep it as natural as possible. I only chose frozen blueberries because they're easy to work with. If you have fresh, have fun with that. I chopped up some raisins, about 20 of them or so. And then I have 1 black tea bag. You could see it's not the expensive kind, it's just black tea. I'll get more into that later. And then about 1.5 cups of water. Get some heat behind this. What we're going to do now is bring this to a boil, then let it simmer to steep for about 10 minutes or so. Hey, so that tea bag is totally optional. I like the mouthfeel it gives the final product. It gives it like a little bit of tanniny, a little bit of mouthfeel. It's nice. It'll make a more full-bodied product. It won't add no flavor, and it won't really color your mead either. I just like it. It's a preference of mine. I've learned it makes a better mead at the last stages. If you don't have black tea, don't substitute it for anything else. Don't use a green tea. Don't use something with mint in it. It's going to be a different feeling. It's going to give a different flavor. It might color, change, or spoil your mead. So stick with black tea. If you don't have black tea and don't want to buy any, skip it. But if you do have it or you do want to make a little bit of an investment, it will be worth it at the end, I promise. Okay, and as you can see, our blueberry mixture is done. It's been steeping for about 10 minutes now, and I'm just going to simply strain it. I'll try to get every drop. This is a crucial part of this. This is a crucial step to take. You really want to get all that goodness into this bowl. This is full of nutrients, it's full of flavor and color, and you want all of that to get into your final product. I'm choosing not to brew with the blueberries in the mead today. It's something I really recommend for people who are just starting out, and if this is your first mead, your second mead, or you've tried it in the past and it didn't work. You have to be really careful when you brew with fresh fruit. If you don't rack it soon enough, you're going to get weird flavorings, weird textures, something might spoil. I know I'm not going to have to mess with this for at least 2 weeks. So that's why I do it this way. But we'll get more into that a little bit later on in the video. I think it's finally time to start creating our must. Real quick, almost forgot, at this stage you also want to hydrate your yeast. As I said, we're using Nottingham yeast. I'm going to use about half a packet or so. Now, before anyone out there tries to jump down my throat and say, whoa, whoa, it's way too much yeast, you're going to overpitch it. You're not. This yeast is kind of durable. That's why I like using it. I really just want to make sure it's alive right now, which is why I'm stirring it up in this water. But here's the thing. If this yeast is dead, and I put a dead yeast into my mead, I'm not going to know for another 2 or 3 days, and it's 2 or 3 days of time that I've wasted when I could have just taken this quick step and I can know by the time I need it. Also, half a pack of yeast is going to help because this stuff is going to have to grow. It's going to have to multiply. There's a lot of things it's going to have to do in that mead. Mead is very thick. That honey is very hard for the yeast to start up with. So I like to throw a little extra in there. And this way, it's just a much smoother process. It's just kind of like putting a failsafe into the beginning of the recipe. It's not going to explode. It's not going to destroy the mead. It's a little bit of extra yeast. I'm okay with it. I think you should be too. Alright, and now we're going to start creating our must. We have all the necessary stuff on the table behind us. Everything's been sanitized, including this carboy. And this honey is nice and warm. Again, I didn't boil it, I didn't superheat it. I just got enough heat through it that it will pour out of this and into this fairly easily. If you don't do this step, this is going to take you a really long time to get into this carboy. This is 2 pounds of honey. Again, it's Busy Bees local honey. Use whatever local honey you have access to. If you don't have access to a local honey or beekeeping facility, try to find the best raw honey you can find. Raw honey is key. You don't want anything that's been processed or has chemicals or is a honey-like substance. Those are not going to create the same kind of mead. Again, I want to keep things as simple as possible. If all you have is your local supermarket's honey, taste it. If you like the way it tastes, it'll probably create a good mead at the end. I just like using stuff that I know, and I like keeping it as local as possible, and that's why I'm using this product. You use whatever you have access to. But look at that. It pours right out. Oh, and before I forget, you want to make sure you're using 2 full pounds of honey by weight. Mine comes weighed, and it's 2 pounds per container, so I know how much I'm using. If you find that you bought a 5-pound thing of honey, or you're buying several smaller vessels, just weigh it out. It's 2 pounds for 1 gallon of mead, and it's worth it. So next I'm going to take this blueberry mixture. This is still very hot, and if I put yeast directly into this right now, I would kill it. It does not survive in hot temperatures. You really don't want to go above 100 degrees with this stuff. However, the hot liquid is going to help me dissolve the rest of the honey out of this and get some of that honey out of the funnel. And if you can see what color that is, it's absolutely amazing. This is going to create such a fantastic looking honey at the end. I think the name Midnight is fitting for it. The next thing I'm going to do is take the rest of this blueberry. And I'm not going to spill it like I just did. I'm going to get every little drop into here. I'm going to get a stopper. Now, the reason I'm doing this like this is with this stopper, I can shake this without getting it everywhere. It's still a little hot. I don't want to get it everywhere. I do want to dissolve this honey at this point. Get it nice and in there. I start with a little bit of liquid and I shake it as is. This is also aerating the mixture. You want to get a little bit of air in there at the beginning, around these stages, maybe a day or two, just to help get that yeast going, and then you really don't want air to be any part of this mixture. In case you don't know, there's stuff in the air, and if it gets into this mixture when it starts to produce alcohol, it'll eat the alcohol and you'll end up with vinegar. I've never seen a good vinegar mead. I don't want to create one. I don't think it would be a good taste. So let's just avoid that. Alright, next I'm going to take water. I'm going to keep going back to this, and you'll see this in a lot of my videos. I talk about just the importance of what the ingredient is you use. I live in New York. We have some amazing tap water. But it does have chlorine, it does have fluoride. I drink it all the time. I don't think it would ever hurt. When it comes to making alcoholic beverages, you want to kind of stick to more of a spring water. If you have a good filter, use whatever's in the tap. If you don't, just go out and buy an inexpensive spring water. It's pretty simple. It won't destroy your product if you have to use something directly from the tap. You probably won't even notice a difference. If your water doesn't taste good to you, you're probably not going to like the final product. And it's really just about the flavor at the end. I'm not going to get into all the details about what's going to kill your alcohol, what's going to create off flavors. Just know if it doesn't taste good going in, it's not going to taste good after it ferments. At this point, I'm going to fill it. If you use a carboy like this, it actually has a line that says 1 gallon. I'm going to fill it to a little bit above that mark, and that's going to give me a gallon of product at the end. That's another reason why I don't like to put fresh fruit and other stuff into a 1 gallon mixture. I would do it if it was 5 gallons, 2 gallons, something like that, where I have enough product on top of it. But if I put it in here, I'm going to waste a lot more at the end. And if you're going to go through all the steps to create an alcoholic beverage or a mead or anything that's going to be fermenting for a while, you want to get as much as possible at the end. That's why I do it this way. Here's our water. If you can smell this, it's just amazing right now. Now I'm going to take my stopper again, I'm going to put it back in. I'm going to give this another few shakes. As I said, this must needs a little bit of air at the beginning. I also want to make sure I get as much honey incorporated as possible. If it separates after this effect, yeast will not eat straight up honey. So if there's globs of honey in here, after a few weeks, it's still going to be globs of straight up honey. But if you dilute it and get it really nicely incorporated into this mixture, you're going to have a much nicer product at the end. Now, there's one or two more things I want to do before I add the yeast into this. I want to point out that this was cooler water. So if you feel the size of this right now, it's not hot at all. Everything cooled down. It's 100% below 100 degrees. If you have doubts about that, feel free to stick a thermometer in at this point. It would just... Above 100 degrees, you're going to kill your yeast. You're not going to have any kind of good product at the end. You don't want anything to do with that. I'll be right back. Alright, so I want to take a hydrometer reading. As I said, this is a step that I find to be super important. If you don't want to invest in a hydrometer because it's your first mead ever and you don't know if you're ever going to do another alcoholic beverage again, you don't want to waste 18 bucks, I get it. You're still going to have a product. The problem is at the end, you're not going to know how much alcohol is in that product. If all you care about is the flavor at the end and the alcohol does not concern you, you can skip it. I wouldn't. There's so many things that can happen between now and when your product is done. And this simple little reading that's going to give me the specific gravity is going to tell me exactly what stage my mead is in at that particular moment. And I'll know how to fix it or how to play with it or what to do with it if I need to do anything. And at the end of the process, I will know exactly how much alcohol is in my mead. And I find it to be super good information. And all you do is put the weighted end in. You let it float. And then you just kind of see where it is. There's some bubbles. It's going to give it a little bit of a challenge. But I think we can still see fairly clear where we lie. And we're looking at a 1.19. Not bad for a mead. Okay, now that we've measured that, I want to just go ahead and add this right back into the mixture. There's a lot of good product there. There's a lot of good flavors, and everything here is sanitized. I don't feel a need to waste it. I haven't even put any yeast into this must yet. And in case you're wondering, I'm looking at my yeast right now. I'm seeing a little bit of activity in here. I'm confident this is alive, and I know it's going to do exactly what I want it to do, so I'm going to, at this point, put it right in. This is an awesome color, by the way, and I know that the final product is just going to have a really deep purpley blue color, and I'm very satisfied with that. Alright, so the last thing we need to do is we need to put an airlock on this. You're going to see a lot of controversy online. I'm just going to make it super simple for you guys. This costs like a couple bucks, if that. You can get them in larger quantities online, and you can get the price down to like 50 cents if you really want, if you're going to brew a lot of stuff. These are totally worth it. If you're only going to brew one or two things and just test it out, these are totally worth it. You're going to see some people who say, oh, you can use a balloon, you can use other things, other methods. This is airtight. No air is getting into here with this on top of it. It's going to bubble, so it's going to allow me to know, especially with a darker liquid like this, I'm going to look at the bubbles in here to know that this is still going. When this stops bubbling, that means this is done. Or it means this is stalled and I need to get it going again. Either way, foolproof. I like foolproof. Foolproof makes my life easier. It'll make your life easier too. But here we go. That's our must. And there we go. We have our midnight mead. This is going to ferment for about 2 weeks before I rack it the first time. I'll make sure I make a video about that so you guys can see exactly how that works. I know it sounds complicated, but trust me, it's not. Racking is one of the easiest things to do, and it's not a time-consuming process. In about 4 weeks, this is going to be a delicious, drinkable, tasty mead. I want to point out real quick that I have a good amount of headroom in here. This is going to create gas. That gas is going to get stored here and go through the airlock and escape. It's going to stop anything from getting back in. That's the goal. To let this live, do its thing, be its own mead, and when it's ready, it'll tell us. And I'll show you all the ways along the way to see the different signs to tell what stage your mead is currently in. Alright, thanks for watching Filled with Facts. This was a simple mead. If you liked the video, please give me a like, please subscribe, please hit the notification bell. I'm going to be putting a lot of videos up. A lot of them are going to have really useful tricks. I want to just give you guys a lot more confidence when it comes to cooking and trying out new things, trying out different techniques you might not have otherwise tried. I think brewing your own alcohol is an amazing experience. I think it gives you a lot of freedom. I strongly recommend everybody does it at least once. If you don't like it, you don't have to do it again, but if you like it, the stuff you can create is so much better than the stuff you have access to that there's no reason not to do it. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or if you just want to say hey in the comments below, please feel free to leave comments. I will try to get back to any questions as soon as possible. And expect to see me in a couple of days. Alright guys, thank you. Have a good one.